Hello, hello! Welcome to another episode of History in the Dark. I am your host, Darkness the Curse. And before we begin, as always, thank you so much to my generous patrons, my British Rail critics, and of course, my underwater train finders, whose unique skills are about to become very relevant. Thomas Ward, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Some Dude 267, Longsight, Joshua Long, Ohio Trucker 1, Royal Hudson 2860, Lord Hoth 444, Arthur Roy, Benjamin Owens, and Panzer Kitsune 131-232. You are the reason why this content remains lost in the eternal aquatic abyss, just like today's topic, as I keep getting challenged by people to find lost locomotives in wherever they live. And this specific request was actually about Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Now, I did not actually find any evidence of a lost locomotive in Milwaukee yet, but I did learn that apparently Wisconsin in general is just a treasure trove of lost locomotives. There's a ton of rumored underwater trains in this one state, so I thought I'd focus on that today. This is the story of the many rumored underwater trains of Wisconsin, USA. Wisconsin is a fairly northern state, seated near the Great Lakes, right between Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. It was admitted to the Union on May 29, 1848, and it was the 30th state to enter the United States. I've actually been up to Wisconsin before. It has a beautiful landscape, and a ton of history behind it, as you may imagine. But today we're going to focus, of course, on sunken locomotives. And I don't know what it is about Wisconsin. Apparently it's just too close to Canada. But there's actually a ton of rumors and stories circulating about various bodies of water in Wisconsin that apparently hold old locomotives hiding within them. Now, I'm going to tell you up front, most of the stories I've found so far are actually based more on word of mouth. The issue with a lot of these is they happened quite a long time ago in the 1800s. Back then, if there wasn't a death or injury involved with some kind of accident, oftentimes railways didn't even report that a locomotive had been lost, because it just wasn't worth it. It was considered an operational hazard, it was just a thing that occurred. So the first alleged lost locomotive was apparently lost in 1859, involving a set of rails that were owned by the Chicago, St. Paul, and Fond du Lac Railroad. If that railroad isn't familiar to anybody, I really don't blame you, as it didn't last very long before being acquired by Chicago and Northwestern. Which, fun fact, is actually one of my favorite railways. One of my first model trains I got as a kid was a little diesel hood unit that was a Chicago and Northwestern, but that's off topic. The body of water in question for this one was Otter Creek. Otter Creek is actually also the name of the town that's next to the creek, and it's in western Wisconsin in Dunn County. But the engine that was apparently lost within it was a 440, which would make it an American. There was a bridge that went over Otter Creek that apparently gave way, and the locomotive sank into the creek bed and was never recovered. The story also mentions there was quicksand involved, which is a little dubious if you ask me. The second I hear quicksand, my alarm bells are raised in terms of questioning it, because quicksand as a thing is not really a thing like we usually think it is, but for a large, heavy object like a locomotive, I can't imagine it being sunk if the ground was boggy enough, so it is possible that this locomotive was lost this way and simply never reported. As for where it could possibly be, it's anybody's guess. Some people actually did some research to figure out exactly where the old rail line would have ran, so it's likely near there if it's there at all. But again, this is a story that's just been passed down from generation to generation. It could have been made up from the start. We don't really know yet. But we have at least one more discussion about an underwater train in Wisconsin, and this time the body of water is Rock Lake. Rock Lake is located in southern Wisconsin, that covers a 1,365-acre area and has a maximum depth of 60 feet. The story this time is that a locomotive was actually traveling over the lake when it was frozen. And before you question that, no, that was a thing that was totally done. They used to build tracks over frozen lakes because the ice was solid enough to support the locomotive. Sometimes. There were cases where the ice did break and a locomotive went in. Therefore, unlike the last one, where I think the quicksand idea might be a little more dubious, the locomotive just falling through the ice after they laid track over the lake during the winter is something I can totally believe, because that is a thing that we know totally occurred. Maybe not specifically on Rock Lake, but it definitely occurred other places, so who's to say it didn't happen on Rock Lake? As for what locomotive it could be, well, that's where things get more mysterious. We just don't know. No one seems to even know who would have owned this one at the time, or even what date it happened, though it is believed it would have happened in sometime in the late 1800s. And the guess is that it's probably small, maybe an 040, but it wasn't unheard of for them to bring 440 Americans over the ice. As bad of an idea as that would have been, it was a thing that actually occurred, so who's to say it couldn't be one of those? Either way, we're never really gonna know for sure, unless we get some kind of record that turns up, and I haven't found any, just so we're clear, or if someone, and follow me on this, wants to maybe, I don't know, plan a nice vacation to either one of these bodies of water in scenic Wisconsin. Maybe, I don't know, use a ground-penetrating radar, or a boat with a side-scan sonar, or maybe a magnometer, or, you know, go scuba diving in Rock Lake. That would be fun. I'm just throwing it out there, just ideas. I do kind of want to know if there's locomotives there. And I'm willing to believe at least one of these stories may actually have some truth to it, on the basis that how many weird spots have we found locomotives in on this channel? Lost trains are all over the place. Remember that old outdated meme, everything is cake? No, everything is locomotives. They're all over the place. I would literally not be surprised if one day someone came to my house and said, by the way, there's an old steam locomotive buried under your property. I would at no point be shocked and amazed by this revelation, purely by what I have experienced running this channel. I'm just throwing it out there. So, that's what I got out of Wisconsin so far. But I feel like this might be a topic we revisit in the future. Call it a hunch, but till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.